Good evening, Professor S. For my presentation this week, I decided to choose the actual topic we were speaking of this week, and that is our hockey situation with our bench clearing brawl. Just to catch you up and let you know what the situation is, you have two high school hockey teams that are somewhat rivals. You have Cheap Shot High School and you have Fair Play High School, and the names kind of fit the teams. And Cheap Shot High School had beaten Fair Play High School earlier in the season, and they're getting ready to play a game that's going to dictate where the winner goes to sectionals or postseason. So the game starts, the hockey match starts. Cheap Shot High School kind of plays up to their name, and there's a little bit of illegal play going on, and the officials aren't calling anything. And Fair Play High School athletes who have different values and different morals decide that when they're faced with this adversity, instead of making good decisions, they're going to fight back. So they lower their standards, and they kind of push their values and morals and their approach to the game aside, and they decide to lower themselves to the level of Cheap Shot High School. And because the officials are letting this kind of go and so forth, towards the end of the game, a fight starts and the bench is clear. The game is suspended, and the officials get together and they cancel the game, and then the district of these schools get together and decide to suspend both teams for the remainder of the year. Not athletes, but the entire teams. So that's kind of the situation that's being faced with our discussion tonight. The common sense solution, or the common sense approach for a district or an AD or anybody out there, when you think of the moral problem or the moral situation that you're trying to face here, and that is punishing the kids in a fair way, but letting them understand, sending a message that this is a learning process, that this isn't to be tolerated. I mean, we all understand that hockey is a violent sport. Schools on the East Coast, I've done some research. These schools that have hockey teams in Minnesota, and Connecticut, in Michigan, very, very, very zero tolerance. It's very black and white what the rules are. So this district, I would think, the problem that they were facing was, how do we punish these kids and to the point to where it'll deter other teams in the future to fight, how it's fair here and there. And I'm sure that's what the public or anybody involved thinks about, is how are these kids going to be held accountable, and how might this stop a situation in the future. And that takes me to the reason that I've chosen this specific topic, because I think it goes a lot deeper than that. And I've coached for many, many, many years, and I understand the situation involved about bench clearing brawls. I've coached and been a part of those in baseball. However, the moral problem I think that we face here, and I'm using the deontology of decision-making process, where the moral problem that I think we're facing here is not only what is fair and what's not fair to individual athletes, and to stop fighting and to keep violence out of the sport. My thought process is what actually occurred, what happened before this brawl started that actually threw gas on the fire for this bench clearing brawl to happen. Yes, the players were the ones involved, but something might have happened leading up to this one event. First and foremost, the responsibility, a different person I have to point the finger at, is the coaching staff. I mean, Cheap Shot High School comes into this match with a name like that, It tells you what their play is like. It tells you what their values and what their morals and how their approach is to this sport. And throughout the game, it's obvious. Excuse me. It's obvious that they do play somewhat illegal and they do cheap shots. And the safety of other athletes is not the most important thing. And I could go on and on. And the bottom line is that program and those athletes are represented. They're a direct reflection of their coach, and they represent what the coach teaches them, and and how he handles them and how he deals with that situation. So that style of play and the way that program is a direct reflection of their coaching staff. If this was taken care of prior to this game, and that wasn't an approach that team took, I'm not sure if all these events would happen. Now, on the flip side, fair play comes in high school, and their morals and values and standards and respect for the game and other athletes is probably different. Better than cheap shot high school, obviously. But like in every sport, you're going to face adversity, and you're going to face situations where you have to make good or bad decisions. And athletes are responsible for that, but head coaches are definitely responsible for that. They're coaching them throughout the game, and they're preparing them for a game in hopes that they make good decisions. And fair play in this situation didn't make a good decision. Their athletes took it upon themselves to lower standards, to lower themselves down to cheap shot high school. And because of that, and because of officiating was very loose and allowing the kids to pretty much do what they want, it just turned into an all-out just mess. So I understand the moral situation and what you're trying to decide based on players, but I think the coaches themselves have to be held responsible, and there has to be circumstances for them. Whether it's suspended games or put on probation or put under contract or something, that they have to, they need to worry more about the safety of their players and playing within the rules and how they represent those high school programs versus cheap shots and making poor decisions that can lead to situations like this and violent situations and just unsafe situations. Because of that, and because of there's even somebody even ahead of the coaches in any sport you play, or most sports you play, there's officials. I believe they're held even a little more responsible than the coaches, because they go in and their primary responsibility is to make sure all the rules, regulations are followed. Not only that, they do that to keep fair play and sportsmanship, but they do that for the safety of all the athletes. And when you go in and you're not allowing, or you are allowing, both teams to play violent, you're not calling anything, there's no structure, there's no guidelines or anything, the players can just do what they want, things are going to get out of hand. And then that, along with the coaches, and just the coaches thinking that these high school kids can make all the good decisions and they're not actually coaching them, it turns into a brawl between a bunch of high school athletes. So I do think the high school athletes are responsible, and they should be held accountable, and that I strongly agree with. I don't know if there was a TV there or videotaping, but there's got to be a way to, especially in the future, to monitor these type of games. I've seen basketball games that are videotaped, so a guy that comes off the bench that's not actually part of the fight, he may be suspended a game, or the guys that were fighting might be suspended 3 games, and so forth. The players need to be held accountable. They're high school players, and they made poor decisions. The people that are in charge of these athletes, the coaches, I think should be penalized. There should be circumstances there. And then even more so, I think the officials. Once again, it's their job to ensure safety and to do a professional job of calling a game. So when I look at this with the deontology-based decision making, I showed you the moral problems, and it goes far beyond just how to discipline these kids. It goes how to discipline the more important problem, and that's what kind of caused this situation. But it kind of, we discussed maybe some situations and circumstances on how the coaches or the officials can also be reprimanded. And hopefully, that district, just like it is here in Oklahoma, OSSAA, there can be some specific guidelines set in place, especially after an altercation like this, to where there's not so much gray area. Whether it's if you come off the bench but you're not involved, it's this penalty. If you do this, it's this penalty. If you do this, it's this penalty. So I hope I answered this. I answered as best I could. And like I said, I chose this one because I think everybody common sense wants to just flat out punish the kids. And they may not see the underlying problems of why this might have happened and what they can do to help prevent this happening in the future. Really enjoying this class, and I really enjoy your feedback, and I'm looking forward to your feedback on this video. Thanks, Professor S.